Most men never actually decide who they are. They inherit fragments, a little from their parent, a little from their culture, a little from their pain, a little from politics, a little from social media, a little from survival. Then one day, life punches them in the mouth and they realize they actually have no foundation underneath them. Their marriage struggles, their career collapses, their health fails, their confidence disappears, and their purpose actually evaporates. And suddenly they discover they built their whole life on reactions instead of convictions. You see, that's a problem. Most people are trying to improve themselves before they ever define themselves. And if you don't know who you are, every hard season will just redefine you. That's what today's episode's about. Not motivation, not productivity, not discipline hacks, not optimization culture, foundation. Because everything we build in life eventually rests on what we believe to be true about ourselves. And if that foundation is weak, eventually the pressure exposes it. We're going to check in with our sponsor, then we're going to roll into that intro and dive into the 4x4 pillars that built the Driven to Thrive framework. Mike Lindell and his employees want to personally thank you for your continued support of MyPillow. They have a big allotment of their bed sheets that were earmarked for a box stores this spring. Well, they did it again and the box stores didn't come through. So they're going to pass the savings directly to you. There's no middleman, so you're going to get wholesale prices on their famous Giza Dream bed sheets, which I sleep on every night. Queen size normally $179.96. Wholesale price $69.99. King size $79.99. Another amazing deal they're offering is on their premium MyPillows. Queen size $18.98. Kings just $1 more. So go to mypillow.com and use promo code THRIVE. I know, super complicated, right? Thrive or call 1-800-794-5834. Free shipping options are available over a certain amount with all of my discount codes. MyPillow has been good to us as sponsors for this show. They've been with us for several years now, and we're grateful for our relationship with them, not only because we use MyPillow products through my whole household, but because they make great products and they're an American-owned company owned by the employees, and we're proud to be associated with them. So remember, go to mypillow.com, scroll down to the radio podcast square, and use promo code THRIVE or call 1-800-794-5834. That's my phone number and nobody else's to get these amazing wholesale offers. Let's go on to our show. The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. Helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives. Welcome to the Driven to Thrive broadcast, where men learn to lead themselves, their families, and their world with purpose, growth, and lasting impact. I'm your host, Brent Dowlen. Let's get into it. Now, 6 years ago, I turned on the camera and stepped up to the microphone to record the very first episode of the Driven to Thrive broadcast, formerly known as the Fallible Man podcast, which is why that's the name of my company. We launched with 10 episodes, and I bet most of you have never seen the very first one. It's still up on YouTube, by the way. We've changed almost everything since then. The number of episodes we release each week, the format, the artwork, the equipment, the name, the studio setup. We've taken 2 breaks. We've had incredible highs. We've had some pretty brutal lows. And honestly, I hope we've grown along throughout the journey, and I hope you have too. If you can say that you have been with us since the beginning, we are so grateful for your continued support here at the Driven to Thrive broadcast. And I know a handful of my listeners have been with us since day one, over 6 years, well, just under 6 years ago now. If you're new to the podcast, welcome to the Driven to Thrive broadcast. I hope you guys stick around and give us a chance. This is a special episode for our 400th episode, which statistically only 1.3% of podcasts ever get to. So this is kind of a big thing and kind of a big moment for us. What I can tell you with absolute certainty after 400 episodes is this. The presentation, well, that's gotten better. At least I hope that's gotten better. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. Go back and watch episode number 1. Because yikes, Yeah. Well, like I said, go ahead. Watch episode 1. It's painful for me, but I wanted to leave it up because it reminds me where we started. And it also reminds me that the heart has never changed for this show. In this special 400th episode, I want to revisit where we started because while I don't usually spend a lot of time talking about identity, about your core foundations of who you are, because I would hope you come to personal development with that identity already built. I think we need to come back around to it because there has been a little confusion. So while we normally don't talk about defining who you are with the show, we talk about your growth and how to help you grow. We do need to circle back. We did it on episode 1, we did it on episode 200. And so 200 episodes later, or 400 episodes total, I think it's time to circle back because everything else we talk about on the show becomes completely useless without a foundation strong enough to support it. And that requires having a clear identity. Now, back in episode 1, I introduced the concept of the 3x3 pillar set as a foundation for your life. Then, about episode 200, that framework evolved into what I now call the 4x4 pillar. Like I said, radical. I know I'm a genius. I come up with great names because adding one more gave you a little more flexibility and a little stronger foundation. What I can tell you after all these years is my foundation has not changed. Life has changed. Business has certainly changed. My understanding has deepened and grown, I hope. And my skills have definitely improved and my responsibilities have grown. But in all of that, my foundational pillars, the core of my identity, has stayed the same. And honestly, I think that consistency is part of what kept me grounded during some of the very difficult seasons that have come. If you've been around with us for a long time, like I said, since the beginning, you'll know we got deplatformed back in 2024 and it really set the show back hard. We went through a branding change at the beginning of 2025, and we're just now coming out of a 2-month break for some big business changes. And I'm not going to lie, it's been chaos in those time periods. Because when life gets chaotic, your foundations matter more than your feelings is part of the reason I'm circling back on this, because as much as recently I found out that this was a misconception about personal development, we addressed that last week, because personal development is not self-help and it is not something that defines who you are. We talked about that last week, and go catch that episode if you want. If you missed it, it will help clarify this conversation. But I also want to circle back to it because it is those 8 pillars in my life that have held the glue together on this thing through the entire 400 episodes and everything that's come with it. So let's put it like this. Imagine 8 pillars underneath your life. 4 foundational beliefs, 4 foundational values. Together, they become the framework that your identity stands on. This is the foundation of you, who you are. For me, my 4 foundational beliefs are God, family, country, people. I have to move fingers for that. God, family, country, people. Now, I know those might not sound unique. Maybe they sound simple, maybe even predictable. But these beliefs have held me upright during some of the hardest moments of my life, from my time in the military and dealing with depression, to addiction, to going out on my own in the business world. And yes, I really was raised with 3 of these 4 as a foundation with my whole family. You'll find at least 3 of these in all of my siblings because it's the way we were raised. And it's something that became my own because it's carried me in those difficult times. And I combine those with my 4 foundational values, which are ownership, integrity, growth, and service. They give me direction. They help steer things. It's not perfection, it's direction. They become the guardrails for my life, those 8 things, those 8 pillars. They shape my decisions, my relationships, my behavior, my goals, my business, my leadership. Even this show, They're the foundation of all of it. When I make business decisions, these pillars come with me. The question isn't only will it make money, right? I know that's a really important question in business. It's taken me a long time to realize that, but right, is it income viable? It's not the only question I get to ask, because the deeper question I have to ask is, does this align with who I am and what I stand for as not only an individual, but as a business? And I've turned down sponsors before because they violated those pillars. I had a pharmaceutical company that wanted to sell male enhancement pills on my show because I talked to men. And it was sketchy as hell. And I said no, because I could not, in good faith, say they aligned with what I believe, nor offer them to you guys, because it was lucrative, but it's not something I would recommend, and it's not something I would use. It's not like my sponsors with MyPillow, who I use. I sleep on MyPillow every single night. I sleep on Giza sheets. They're a company I can get behind, and they're a company I use every day of my life. And I believe in the company. I can't say that with these other ones. And so I've had to walk away from some lucrative offers. It wasn't easy. Taking it would certainly have been profitable. But if you compromise your foundation long enough, eventually you stop recognizing yourself, because that foundation really is the root of who you are. These 8 pillars absolutely anchor me, not because I execute them perfectly 100% of the time, because I don't. I try, but they always pull me back towards center when life tries to drift me off course. And eventually, every person is going to run into that very question of, who are you? And this is where we going to switch the conversation. I had to give you the example for me, because the only way I know how to convey this to you effectively is to show you what I've done in my life and how it works in my life, so you can get a clear sense of what I mean, as is the clearest example I could give you. But let's talk about you, because this is the universal question that everybody runs into is, who are you? Now, not your job title. As men, we do this a lot. I was talking to the guys on the Men's Roundtable podcast the other night, and we had this very conversation. This is what most men pick as their identity, is their job title. It's where we find our identity a lot of times, because that's all we're taught to be, is the provider who has this job, and that job is who I am, because that's what I do, because that's what I do for the people I love. It's not who you are. It's a part of your life. I've had a lot of job titles. I've had a lot of jobs. I've had a lot of professions. Podcaster, news guy, IT guy, construction guy, been all of it. It's not who I am. It's a part of what I do in my life. So when I ask you who you are, it's not your job title. It's not your income bracket. It's not your politics. It's not your trauma, because most men have faced some kind of trauma in their life. It's not your achievements, and it's not your failures. Let me be really clear on that. None of these things are who you are. And that's why we struggle with this question as men. And a lot of men never actually build that identity, because we've been lied to. We've been confused. We've been told this is what defines us. This is who we are. All these things I just listed off, but it's not who we really are. Until you answer that, personal development becomes just random motion, because it feels good to be making some kind of direction on something. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can improve your habits. You could improve your income. Maybe you can improve your fitness, right? Well, you absolutely can, but maybe that's the way you're going. Whatever it is, right? You can do all those things. But if you don't know who you are underneath it all, you'll spend your entire life becoming more efficient at moving in circles. So you, as a man, having this conversation with me right now, it's you and me, okay? Coming close, let's talk this through. How do you identify your foundational beliefs because they're the core of who you are. Once you anchor those in, the who am I question is actually really clear, and you'll never get confused about all the other stuff again. Now, honestly, you probably already know what your foundational beliefs are. You likely live with them already, and you just never name them. I mean, most people have just never slowed down long enough to actually put a name on it or phrase it that way, right? We've never framed it as like, oh, this is a foundational belief for me. But it's something you know. It's something you already live by a lot of times. Your foundational beliefs are usually revealed through patterns. What consistently breaks your heart? What consistently motivates you? What are you naturally protective of? What you sacrifice for? What makes you angry when it's violated? What gives your life meaning even when life is difficult? What you hold on to no matter how hard life gets. Here's the important part. Your beliefs are not what you post online. They're what survives pressure. Everybody says family matters until work demands more time. Then money matters more. Everybody says integrity matters until lying becomes expensive. Or, moreover, until the truth becomes expensive. Everybody says faith matters until obedience costs comfort. Pressure actually reveals belief. That's why hard seasons often expose identity crisis in people, because suffering strips away the performance and reveals what's actually underneath. Now, for a faith-based individual, this becomes even more important because if your identity starts with God, then your life stops revolving around self-definition and starts revolving around stewardship. You stop asking, what do I feel like becoming? And start asking the important question of, what was I created and called to become? And that changes everything. But regardless of your worldview, you still need to identify the beliefs that form the bedrock of your life. Not 20, not 50, that's untenable. 4. I want you to just find 4. Clear enough that you can actually use them when life gets difficult. So strong, so clear that unquestionably, no matter what, those 4 things you can and will hold on to no matter what life throws at you. Then we're going to move to your values. You notice I'm not telling you what your core beliefs are. I can't do that, and I'm not going to. Only you get to decide that. But then we got to go to values. And honestly, values can be a lot harder because there's a lot of good values. There's a lot of good values. I could have chosen stewardship, discipline, presence, loyalty, courage. These are all really important values to me. I mean, all of these really strike a deep chord for me. Stewardship and service were honestly neck and neck for the final spot on my list of 4 because stewardship is such a core value of the way I approach things, including this show. And that's the challenge, right? You're going to have more than 4 values. You are. And that's good. That's not a problem. There's more than 4 values that matter to you. But foundational values are different. These are the values that consistently shape how you move through life. When everything else fades, when everything else is hard, when life gets nasty, when you feel like you can't hold your head up anymore or you can't keep going. These are the 4 values that hold no matter what. Not aspirations, patterns. Your values are revealed by what you prioritize, how you treat people, what you refuse to compromise, how you respond under stress, what kind of person you repeatedly try to become. This part matters Okay. Your value must be livable. Values must be livable. Not performative, not an inspirational poster material. Real, real, livable values. Because values are not proven in speeches. I can list off a list from here until we all die of boredom, I'm pretty sure. There are a lot of values in the world, and there are a lot of good values in the world. But it doesn't matter what I say. Those real core values, they're proven in repetition, especially in the hard time. And that's why I recommend limiting yourself to 4 foundational beliefs, 4 foundational values. Not because the other things aren't important, but because clarity really matters. And too many people overload themselves trying to become everything all at once. And eventually that becomes overwhelming, confusing, and suffocating. You actually put restraints on yourself, you're limiting yourself. Your foundation should simplify your life, not complicate it. And the more you add, if you go over these 4 on each side, 4 beliefs, 4 values, if you go over these 8 pillars, it's going to complicate your life a lot because it's just so much to live up to and try and embody as a person. These pillars aren't meant to trap you, they're meant to stabilize you. Think of them like a frame underneath a house. The stronger the frame is, the more weight it can support when storms come. And storms always come. You have to allow yourself some grace. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to drift sometimes. You're going to have seasons where you don't live up to your own standards. That doesn't mean the pillars fail. That means you're human. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is alignment. To know who you are clearly enough that when life knocks you sideways, you can still find your way back to center. That's what my values have given me. That's what my pillars have given me, my 8 pillars. No matter which way I get knocked, I can always come back to center. I always have an anchor keeping me stable no matter where I get tossed. They shape everything. They shape every direction. They shape every choice, business, personal. It's who I am. Now, if you're a faith-based person, you'll note that my beliefs started with God. And if you're a faith-based person, then it's actually really simple because God really defines who you are. He doesn't leave it up to anything. He tells you precisely who you are in the Bible. And you'll notice that all the rest of my beliefs and values actually are pretty much covered by that first belief. So as a believer, that makes it really simple for me. If you're not a faith-based person, it may take you a little longer to decide exactly what those 4 things are. Your 4 beliefs, foundational beliefs, the things that hold no matter what, that are unshakable, and your 4 foundational values. Maybe it's a little harder. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I can only tell you from my perspective and my experience. And these are the things that have held me together throughout a lot of storms in life, long before I ever got behind a microphone. These things were foundational. I've always known who I was and had a clear identity that always brought me back to center, no matter what happened. And there have been some pretty big happens along the way. That's what they're there for, because they are your identity. They are who you are. Once you understand that, once you bring everything back at that, every choice comes back to, does this align with who I am? Does this develop who I am? Does this continue with who I am? Does this align and connect and keep me in the flow of who I am, or does it not? Does who I am value money over family? Does who I am value recognition over integrity? Right? If you can bounce everything off that because you know what your identity is, it will also act as the rudder when you start into personal development. Once you know who you are, you can grow intentionally. You can lead intentionally, love intentionally, build intentionally, serve intentionally. But until you know who you are, you're really just reacting to life. You're treading water, drifting with the culture, and borrowing identities from people who don't have to live with the consequences of your choices. Because at the end of the day, there you have to live with all those. And eventually all that chaos becomes exhausting. So maybe the most important work you could do isn't becoming more successful. Maybe it's becoming more grounded, figuring out what you truly stand on and who you truly are. Because at the end of the day, your foundation determines what your life can survive. And men without foundations, well, they don't thrive, guys. They drift. But men who know who they are, they can weather almost anything. Now, I generally don't try and tell people who they are. I'm still not telling you who you are. I'm telling you that until you lock that in, the rest is inconsequential. Knowing who you are is a core component for the work we do on personal development on this podcast. Because without who you are, the personal development, as I said earlier, will just drift you around. Now, if you're secure in who you are, then come back next week. I have had a hard conversation interview with a guy named Tim Tedder about coming back after crossing that line in marriage. You know, that line most people think you can't ever come back from. Spoiler, you can, and it's a lot of work. And if you think, well, that doesn't pertain to me, I've never stepped out of my spouse or she's never stepped out of me, great. That's good. That's a great place to be. But I promise you're going to learn more about protecting your marriage in this upcoming conversation because Tim gets really real about how he screwed up his marriage, how they navigated that, and how they came back from that to even stronger marriage. And all that information is pertinent to making your marriage stronger than ever. Until next week, be better tomorrow because of what you do today. We'll see you on the next one. The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. Helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives.
You know,